The Monster Energy 2012 Amageza Rally was held in Sutherland from the 27th to the 29th of April. 2012 marks the Amageza's second year, and it's clear that the rally is gaining ground. This year's event saw 70 international and local riders eager to get a taste of adventure. That is more than double the number of entrants from last year. This goes to show there's a demand for a dual-purpose motorcycle event in South Africa. This doesn't come as a surprise, since South Africa offers some of the most diverse and breathtaking riding terrains in the world. Varying between plateaus, rimmed by rugged hills and valleys, sandy areas, river crossings and scattered rocks. The country's landscapes are not only breathtakingly beautiful, but also perfect for the advanced rider keen on challenging African adventure. On top of its astonishing landscapes, South Africa also has a large variety of wildlife, which means it has everything needed for a thrilling riding experience. And thrilling, the Amageza Rally certainly is. It's no coincidence that Amageza is the Xhosa word for crazy, which you have to be in order to sport an appetite for this type of adrenaline that the Amageza Rally unleashes onto one. But it's exactly this appetite for crazy adrenaline from which the Amageza was born. And the man behind the Amageza concept, Alexander Nel.
The Amageza is not a race, it is a run. I always say that you can take two guys and put them in wheelchairs and it will turn into a race. But the Amageza is a run. The objective is to finish, not to come first, but just to finish the task at hand. It's the comrades of motorcycle events. It's where you come to prove that you can survive for 8 to 10 hours on your bike through the harshest terrain. This is where you will test your abilities with your machine to its limits, day in, day out. I mean, Africa isn't for sissies. We have elephants and rhinos. We've got the big five. We've got the terrain, we've got the people, we've got the talent. The only thing we needed was the event, and now we have that as well.
Inspired by his dream to compete in motorcycle events similar to the Dakar Rally, Alexander organized the first Amageza in 2011. His goal was to develop his love for off-road riding into a unique South African endurance and navigation rally, offering riders a platform to ride competitively on what must be among the best riding terrains in the world. The aim is to expand the Amageza Run yearly until it grows to be a 14-day African motorbike rally, crossing Southern Africa. Similar in style to the Dakar and the Baja 1000, the Amageza Rally consists of numerous liaisons and special legs that require a high level of navigation skill and endurance. Targeted at the rider who wants to test his abilities to the extreme in a meticulously planned event, the rally is done on road-legal dual-sport motorbikes from 450cc and up. Participants are required to navigate their way through a combination of public roads and vast sections of grueling off-road territory, much of which has never seen the wheels of a motorbike before. Using rally road books and GPS waypoints, riders navigate the route from checkpoint to checkpoint. Only the special sections are timed, so the event is not classified as a race, but rather a run. The objective is to complete the various stages within the time limit, which is imposed to keep the riders grouped for safety reasons. When it came to choosing the location for this year's Amageza, there was quite a lot to consider. The route needed to consist of both public roads, but mostly off-road sections, which had to offer a variety of different technical sections. Sutherland, situated in the Northern Cape, proved to be the perfect location. Its wild landscapes and challenging terrains, coupled with the amazing fauna and flora, were exactly what the organizers were looking for to lay out an exhilarating route. The planning of the route took months of research and a fair amount of patience. Each section of the off-road route had to be crossed by the recce team themselves to determine whether the route is viable. And since the majority of the route went through private ground, they had to get the farmers' permission to use the ground. But living up to their reputation for having true small-town hospitality, the farmers in Sutherland area were more than happy to make their farms available to the organizers. But Sutherland is not only famous for its hospitality. This Karoo town is also known as the gateway to the universe, having the largest telescope in the southern hemisphere, and so it appropriately offered a gateway to a universe of riding adventure, unleashing a healthy dose of adrenaline. Participants crossed nearly 700 kilometers of mountain trails, high-speed gravel roads, and rocky, washed-out farm roads over 2 days. Given the level of difficulty of the event, which is similar to the Dakar Rally, participants had to complete a pre-screening event successfully in order to qualify. Between October and December 2011, 2 qualifying events were held in the Western Cape, and another 2 were held in Gauteng. Interested participants had to complete at least one of these events within the time limit in order to qualify for the Amageza Rally. The 5th and final qualifier was held on the Friday, the day before the rally. Since the Sutherland area had some significant rainfall a day before, the route turned out to be quite challenging. Instead of the normal dry riverbeds, riders had to struggle through muddy sections and deep crossings, which ended up drowning a few bikes. Having experienced the wetter than normal terrain, these riders had an idea of what to expect for the next 2 days. But whether that would be an advantage, only the next day could tell.
Yeah, this morning we had a really early start and it's really cold out in Sutherland. We did a small loop of about 85 kilometers and I haven't done any of these races before and I had to qualify. Really fun, a lot of single track and of course lots of rain the night before, lots of mud out there, deep river crossings. But it's the first time I was back on my 450 rally bike since Dakar, and I really got into it. I got into it straight away and I had a lot of fun.
After the morning's proceedings, the rest of the participants who already qualified in the earlier events started arriving at the bivouac on the local school premises. Everyone had a bit of time to make final adjustments to their bikes and to get everything ready for scrutineering. The scrutineering consisted of 5 main areas: administration, motorcycle requirements, safety, medical and communications. Bikes were checked for the following criteria: whether it's road legal, the working order of the controls, the size of the engine, and the race numbers. Safety equipment was also checked, as well as hydration packs, which needed to contain 3 liters of liquid. After this, the emergency medical operations team examined each participant, checking general health and blood pressure, as well as first aid kits. And lastly, communications gear and navigation equipment were checked with GPS and radio frequency setup. After the completion of scrutineering and registration, everyone headed down to the main street for the official rider announcements. Fans and spectators gathered in the closed-off street where each rider was introduced. 2-time winner of the Roof of Africa and South African Enduro champion Daryl Curtis was among the entrants. Having finished 22nd in this year's Dakar, Curtis was eager to tackle the Amageza. While the riders made notes on their road books, the crew were briefed, which included media, medical, checkpoint controls, the sweeper and recovery team. Each individual was given his or her destination and the protocols for the next day. 2 gyrocopters, which were brought in from Pretoria for the Amageza, also formed part of the support team. They were utilized to provide aerial communications and contribute to the filming of the action. Given the significant distance of the route, the crew were dispersed to cover as many points as possible to be able to give medical or technical assistance where needed. But since the majority of the route covered remote and unmanned areas, the gyrocopters were essential in adding to the safety of the riders by monitoring the route from the air and looking out for any rider who might need medical assistance. For this purpose, the riders were informed on the correct hand signals to use in case of an emergency. After being woken up at 4 a.m. on Saturday and an early breakfast at 4:30, everyone was eager to tackle the day. The crew left for their allocated points at 5 a.m., which gave them enough time to reach their locations and set up checkpoints before the riders passed. After a brief 20-kilometer liaison leg, riders reached checkpoint 1, where they waited in anticipation for the special leg to start. Despite the chill in the early morning air, everyone was fired up and ready to wring the throttle. The 80-kilometer special kicked off upon a glorious sunrise, like only the Karoo can conjure up, which was followed by a 320-kilometer liaison leg from checkpoint 2 in Lanesburg. As expected, the normally dry and dusty terrain was transformed into a muddy challenge, testing riders to their limits as they maneuvered down treacherous mountain drops, across rocky riverbeds, riveting river crossings, and up steep climbs. Daryl Curtis quickly worked his way to the front, laying tracks for the rest. Another top South African rally rider, John Webb, caught up with Curtis, giving him a serious run for his money. 2 bikes were recovered. Gabriel Chris's KTM 950 Adventure broke down near a rocky riverbed, which was picked up by the recovery team after overcoming a few challenging 4x4 obstacles to get there. The only serious crash of the day that forced the rider to quit was by Robert Adams. He crashed his Honda XR650 and managed to reach the emergency medical operations team himself, but unfortunately, having sustained a few cracked ribs, he was unable to finish. Overall, the riders did better than expected for the wet conditions. The first few riders reached the second checkpoint in around 2 hours. The front runners included John Webb, Daryl Curtis, Koos van der Heever, Atti de Jager, Gideon Joubert, Roger Scheffer, and Dewald Heiseman. Renette turned out to be quite a legend among the riders. Despite smashing her face on her bike's handlebar, she refused to quit. Her fellow riders gave her a cheering welcome as she entered the dining hall after the first day of blood, sweat, and tears. Although exhausted, the riders were all smiles, eager to exchange their war stories and, of course, hungry for more. As with the previous day's proceedings, the riders and crew had dinner and were briefed on the next day's proceedings. Then everyone headed to the camp for a much-needed night's rest.
A few falls on some of the rocky ascents, some of the tight corners. but it's absolutely beautiful. The views are spectacular.
It's still fun, eh? Even though it's hard, fun. Wish the day wouldn't stop, if you know what I mean.
No, this is fantastic. Anybody can do it. You know, the skill level is such that you make it as hard as you want it to be, and it's really good fun.
The second day entailed a shorter but just as challenging route. The day's adventure started with a 45-kilometer liaison stage that took participants to the summit of the Oberg Pass, overlooking the Tankwa Karoo, 1,000 meters below. Reaching checkpoint 1, the 60-kilometer special leg started, leading them down a daunting descent onto a fast flat section and up a private rocky 4x4 path. As testament to the difficulty of this section, one rider commented that he would be embarrassed to take a mule along. After battling up a very tricky step up, scattered with rocks, riders reached the top of the mountain plateau, looking out over the valley, as far as the eye could see, which made all the frustration in getting there worthwhile. For Renette, however, the frustration lasted a little longer. On her way up, she smashed a Holiness summit. But refusing to throw in the towel, she fixed the hole with the help of her riding companion, Lucas Becker, and managed to get some oil in order to finish the rally.
I suppose I shouldn't be laughing, but I'm just so excited to have made it this far. That's amazing. Not just here, but the whole route. I mean, those mountains, those rocks, it's just...
Reaching the second checkpoint, the riders were treated with a quick boerie roll on the farm before finishing the last 60-kilometer liaison leg, taking them back to the bivouac. With the final riders loading their bikes the next day, there was a hint of disbelief that the weekend had come to an end. But come 2013, there would be another Amageza Rally, and this one would be even more thrilling and action-packed. The Amageza Rally turned out to be a raging success. Thanks to meticulous planning by the organizers, great sponsors, Sutherland's hospitality, and of course, the riders. There's no doubt that next year is going to deliver an even bigger Amageza with a whole new level of crazy rally adrenaline. So watch this space.